sitting with Lauren Evanthia. She is the founder of the Organic Humanity Movement, and we are going to talk a bit about the COVID-19 vaccine that seems to be storming down the road at us, and that many governments and medical aids and medical insurance companies can't wait to get their hands on to distribute to people. And it seems to me like there is a real effort by the politicians especially to create this perception that everyone is just sitting and waiting for this vaccine to come out. So what I want to start off with is an article that appeared earlier this month that said that AstraZeneca, the drug manufacturer, has been given legal immunity basically from any legal action taken against them from damage arising from their vaccine. And I'm going to read a bit, just one line for you from this article. It says, EU officials told Reuters that the product liability was among contentious points in European efforts to secure supply deals for potential COVID-19 vaccines from Pfizer, Sanofi, and Johnson & Johnson. And the article is basically about how lucky AstraZeneca is that they already have this exemption. Why would manufacturers firstly want to be exempt from legal liability if they are so sure that their product is safe? And secondly, can you wait for this vaccine?
Well, I definitely will not be taking any vaccine, especially because I'm not someone that's at risk. And I think the majority of the population is not at risk. Therefore, they should not need a vaccine. And most people might even have been exposed to the virus. They wouldn't even know about it. And unfortunately, we're being sold a product, and it's almost being forced down our throats in the name of profit, not in the name of health. And we can get into that a little bit later.
Yes, and also one thing I need that people need to understand, and I'll play a little extract from the Event 201 pandemic exercise that Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum hosted in October last year. But they spoke about this very thing. And it came up that companies are not going to mass produce these vaccines unless they have contracts.
So to be completely clear, most of this production would already be committed in contracts.
Yes.
It is almost unheard of that people are producing product without having a forward commitment for the consumption of that product.
So they establish these contracts before manufacturing starts. And you can bet, even if you don't need it, that they are going to try and sell those things. Something has to happen with them. This article actually says that AstraZeneca won't produce this vaccine for any profit, which I think is debatable. But countries are going to sit with these contracts with drug manufacturers for 200 million doses or whatever the number may be. And that contract is done, it's delivered, and it has to go somewhere. So they have to kind of make it seem like we all want this and that it's really necessary. And the concerning thing about the exemption from legal liability is that with the previous swine flu pandemic that we had in 2009, the vaccine that was deployed then by GlaxoSmithKline called Pandemrix was responsible for injuring around 800 European children, and some of them have now started to receive compensation for it. They were brain damaged, and it found that the vaccine causes narcolepsy and cataplexy in about 1 in 16,000 people. So it's not like these things are completely harmless, as is claimed all the time. 800 children is a lot of children.
It is.
That is going to have lifelong ailments because of this vaccine. So what this article from Reuters is basically telling us is that the manufacturers are hesitant to enter into contracts with governments unless they have exemption from legal liability.
Indemnity.
That should raise a lot of red flags for...
That is quite scary, considering Bill Gates wants the entire population to get vaccinated. That's his intention, coming from his mindset and solution to the problem.
Basically what it comes down to is a condition by the manufacturers. If you don't give us exemption from legal liability, we're not going to sign a contract with you.
And actually, theoretically, there's nothing wrong with that if you have a choice whether to be vaccinated or not. if people can opt out, then that's fine. Then people don't have to take the vaccine.
That's true. I mean, a lot of things we use have warning labels on them, and they do tell you about the risk, and it is up to you to use them or not use them, or use them correctly or incorrectly.
Exactly.
But in this case, it does seem like we are heading to a situation where it's going to basically be a condition for you to return to your normal life.
The new normal.
The new normal, which is a very big problem. Do you think we're going to hear any negative stories about vaccine trials? Because I haven't heard any. The only thing I've heard from local news sources is just how great this vaccine development is going, and how great it is that we're having all these trials.
Well, we know all vaccines have side effects, all of them. Any child that goes to get vaccinated will have side effects, and sometimes quite bad side effects. And I suppose, as we've seen in previous Bill Gates videos, he doesn't see side effects as necessarily a bad thing.
Before we listen to one of his clips, that I found a response by him on one of the trials that were going on with one of the vaccine candidates, the Moderna vaccine that everyone was very excited about. But before we get to that, I found this little description of how the AstraZeneca vaccine is supposed to work. And it says the vaccine is being developed at an unprecedented speed. It is made from a genetically engineered virus that causes the common cold in chimpanzees. It has been heavily modified so it cannot cause infections in people, and also to make it look more like a coronavirus. So
interesting use of words.
It's very interesting words. What they're telling you is that this vaccine is not actually made
from the virus,
for the specific virus.
Yeah.
They sort of they're trying to trick your immune system into thinking it is this virus. And then right at the end of this little paragraph, it says, this means the vaccine resembles the coronavirus and the immune system can learn how to attack it. Interesting. Now, of course, that is how all vaccines work. They train sort of your immune system to look out for specific pathogens, and then supposedly it can better handle the infection than without the vaccine. But my question is, why, if we look at the numbers of the mortality numbers specifically for this coronavirus, well over 95, it's probably closer to 99% of people survive this infection. How did they overcome this infection? Some other magical means that's not their immune system. Their immune system didn't learn how to fight this infection. The virus got tired and left.
It's a very good question. For instance, I myself have never ever gotten the flu vaccine as an example. And this is the same with this. We should at least have a choice. And it's going to be interesting to see how governments and the private sector navigate the so-called solution that Bill Gates, among others, are trying to propose to the world for this new pandemic and this new normal. And of course, there's obviously talk about future virus outbreaks.
There is.
And are we going to be vaccinated for every perceivable outbreak that's going to come?
Well, it seems like we'll have to be, because you and I have talked about this little thing before about the densification plans around in cities around Agenda 21 Sustainable Development, where they basically, while they're now telling us to social distance and stay as far away as possible from each other, the actual development plan for the planet is to have everyone live much closer to each other, right on top of each other.
Which is counterintuitive.
Which is exactly why there will be a vaccine around the corner for everything.
But that also reminds me of the social conditioning that we're undergoing right now. We are isolated from family. We are not exposed to germs as much as we usually are, so our immune systems are weakening. But our mindsets and our spirits or emotions are also weakening. And we're kind of being pushed into survival mode. And then when the human race is pushed into survival mode, we'll accept anything as long as it saves our lives, or the promise of our lives being saved is there. Yeah. There's no entertainment. We're not listening to music anymore. We're not going to the movies anymore. There's no leisure. There's no social activity. A lot of people are depressed, unemployed, desperate. So we're being pushed into a corner. And it's going to reach a point where we will accept any kind of tyranny in the name of protection.
I've actually said to a number of people who've spoken to me about this recently that I don't actually expect the government to even, I might be wrong, because I mean, none of us expected the government to lock us in our room for months, but I don't expect them to come out with a hard mandate, actually the government forcing the vaccine on people. They may just make another regulation and say, if you don't have this certificate, then you can't do X, Y, and Z. You can do the other things.
Well, we're already seeing practice runs with masks. We cannot shop without a mask on.
Right.
So every family needs to provide food for themselves. And how do we do that? In this modern civilization we live in, we get our food and our water and whatever we need from the shops. And we can't enter the shops without a mask. So in a way, that's almost like a trial run. Let's see how obedient the population is. Because we could all stand up and refuse to put on a mask and storm the shops, but we don't. We accept what the government does, and the government sees that. And as we accept blindly, then they just carry on increasing the laws and strengthening their arm and strengthening their power and so on until we have nothing left.
And I must say, one of my concerns here is that, as I already said, I don't expect a hard mandate from the government, but I do expect our companies, our corporates, specifically in South Africa, I expect them to step up to the plate big time, helping us once again. And they're not going to come to you in a forceful way either. They're going to come as if they're helping you.
When the private sector does this, then we change our behavior.
This has to be us drawing a line in the sand. If your supermarket is going to play this stupid game, we're not going to shop with you anymore. If you want to see us buy from farmers markets again, just do that.
And that's happening. There is an increase during this lockdown of small businesses starting up out of desperation because their previous businesses just weren't flourishing or surviving. And a lot of people are choosing to buy local. And in my opinion, the biggest revolution that can exist in this world globally is self-reliance. Looking after ourselves, making sure we have food and water, making sure we have food security, and not depend on the government or corporations for food security, but make a plan ourselves. That's the most revolutionary thing we can do for ourselves. Plant a vegetable garden.
Very true.
It's that simple.
And also, I think something that people with businesses must remember or just keep in mind is this is really pick a side time. This is really pick a side time. I know a lot of them feel they can lose their license or the government can do some other bad thing to them. Who do you think the people are going to support? The government compliant shop where you have to jump through 50 hoops before you can enter the store, or the store that allows you to be a normal human being? Which one do you think people are going to choose?
And also, I remember when the beauty industry was under attack, obviously they couldn't operate at all. And there was a protest sometime during the lockdown about it. But, a simple solution, don't protest. If just 50% of all beauty-related companies decided to open up, the government could do nothing. Because that's the majority of people taking a stand. If enough people just use their own common sense and use their freedom and their constitutional rights and do so collectively, then we can overcome anything. We need to realize that everything that's happening right now is global tyranny. That's what's happening. It's being installed via a very real pandemic that is literally killing some people, killing the most vulnerable of our society, unfortunately, like our elderly and people with comorbidities. And it's a tragic thing.
And it's not uniform at all. I mean, we've seen across countries that it's not the same in every place.
We just need to realize where this is coming from. And it's about human control, controlling our behavior, controlling economic behavior as well.
And conditioning, getting us used to the new normal, to new things that weren't in our life before. That's also a big part of it. Because people get used to things easily. It's actually a lot easier than most people realize. We talked a little bit about Bill Gates responding to the Moderna vaccine trials. I just want to play that clip quickly for those who haven't seen it yet. Just watch this clip and tell me if you feel confident about exposing your family to the products or the solution pushed by this guy.
Well, I want to ask you, you mentioned side effects. The side effects for the Moderna vaccine sound concerning. We looked. After the second dose, at least 80% of participants experienced a systemic side effect, ranging from severe chills to fevers. So, are these vaccines safe?
Well, the FDA, not being pressured, will look hard at that. The FDA is the gold standard of regulators, and their current guidance on this, if they stick with that, is very, very appropriate. And you know, the side effects were not super severe. That is, it didn't cause permanent health problems for the things there. You know, Moderna did have to go with a fairly high dose, and so you know, to get the antibodies. Some of the other vaccines are able to go with lower doses to get responses that are pretty high, including the J&J and the Pfizer. And so there's a lot of characteristics of these vaccines. It's great that we have multiple of them that are
Bill,
going out there. And yes, I think
you know the data
US
better than I do.
government-
But Bill, the data showed that everybody with a high dose had a side effect.
Yeah, but some of that is not dramatic, where, you know, it's just, you know, super painful. But yes, we need to make sure there's not severe side effects. The FDA, I think, will do a good job of that, despite the pressure.
That was Dr. Gates on the success of the Moderna vaccine trials. Something else that came up this week was on a clip on, or a conversation on Fox News, where Dr. Siegel recommended that kids who are not vaccinated actually wear stickers that say no hugs to let people know they've not been vaccinated. Now, that's obviously an absurd idea, but let's go with it for a little bit. My question is, why does it have to be the kids that are not vaccinated? Surely it can work the other way around too, the signaling system. And if you're so proud that your kid is safe and vaccinated, why can't they just get an AstraZeneca tattoo or a Merck tattoo on their foreheads? Then we all know.
That's an option. But then also, there's so many vaccinations out there. Some kids just get a few vaccinations. Some kids get all the vaccinations that exist. Where do you draw the line? And how much are you going to regulate this? It's really moving.
And how much are you going to risk? If these companies are all running to you with the savior of humanity, and they all want to be exempt from legal liability.
Exactly.
How much risk are you going to take with your kid?
But there is the key word, companies. This is all about profit, nothing else. A crisis, a very real crisis, has been created so that money can be moved in certain directions to benefit certain people and certain corporations. It's all about money. Nothing else. This is not about our best interests. I do not believe for a second that the government has our best interests at heart, nor do I believe that any pharmaceutical or medical company has our best interests at heart. We know that. We know that it's all about profit at the end of the day, not about people and not about health and not about human rights. It's never been about that. And we are sitting in a time and space where we need to realize that it's time now for us to realize that our freedom is being eroded. Actually, it's pretty much gone already. We just need to claim it back.
Well, under this lockdown, it's pretty much gone, yes.
Yeah.
Well, Lauren, it's been good chatting to you. I'm sure we'll have a lot more chats while you're up here in Gauteng.
Most definitely.
Thank you for watching, and you can follow Lauren on her YouTube channel as well as on Facebook. She's got a page for the Organic Humanity Movement. Mm-hmm. Are you on Twitter? You're on Twitter too?
Yes.
Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, where you can find Lauren. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
We'll see you again soon. Please remember to click subscribe and the bell for notifications, and you can find us in the following places.